if you've heard of Gypsy, Rose, Blanchard. So Munchausen by proxy is where a parent is convinced, falsely, that their child is sick. So the fact that she not only lied to the doctors, somehow convinced people. If you've heard of Gypsy, Rose, if you've heard of Gypsy, Rose, Blanchard. So Munchausen by proxy is where a parent is convinced, falsely, that their child is sick. So the fact that she not only lied to the doctors, somehow convinced people. She was in hospital, she was having operations. I mean, there were photos of tubes coming out of her daughter's, stomach. And all along, Gypsy says, I could walk, but my mum threatened me. My mum wouldn't let me walk. So how does somebody pull such a big, audacious lie over so many people for so long, for something so serious, and convinces doctors to operate on her child?
She believed it. She believed her own lie. And that's what's so dangerous about lies, is that we believe our own lies. Munchausen by proxy is an extreme example. Decades of believing your own lie, believing it so much that you're willing to put your child through pain, through surgery. Dee Blanchard must have literally looked at her daughter in the eye and said, I know what's best for you, and you don't, and you will go under the knife, and you will have tubes coming out of your nose and your mouth and whatever else. You are sick. Stop telling me you're not sick. You don't even know what's best for you. That's what it takes for a mother to chain her daughter to bells and to a bed in the house. Think about how unhealthy mentally that person must be. But what it really boils down to is a simple fact where we believe our own lies.
So it seems like then it's easier to believe a lie from a liar who truly believes their own lies than it is from somebody who's pretend or just trying to lie to get themselves out of a situation.
With Gypsy Rose, you have an extreme example that makes for a very good case study on something that can be even at the micro level. You believe that your kid's a good kid even though they were bullied in school. You believe that the person you're dating is a good man, even though he's inconsistent and maybe even hits you. Like, you tell yourselves a lie, and you believe the lie.
As you just seen, GRB shared that to her Instagram, okay? And I went and watched the whole reel, and this person goes on to say in the comments the link to the full interview and all of that. But I just want to remind people that unless you have read these medical files, okay? Medical files. Gypsy Rose was very close to her 24th birthday. She could have just gotten up and walked out. But she chose not to. The whole thing with the medical records is this very much does not prove Munchausen by proxy. It doesn't. It does prove that somebody was pretending to be a paraplegic, so the medical records reflect that. So somebody will look physically disabled to get a monthly SSI and SSDI check. And that's exactly what happened, because Gypsy Rose Blanchard and her mother, Dee Blanchard, were getting disability checks. And yes, there are people that actually believe their own lie. But if you go back to the prison confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard on Lifetime and you watch that, you will see where her grandfather, Claude, talks about how Dee had Gypsy. And very shortly after she had her, Gypsy's dad left her and was divorcing her. And she came to live at home. And he goes on to talk about how when Gypsy was born, she had sleep apnea. She would stop breathing in her sleep. That they had a machine to give her oxygen. And that machine had an alarm that would go off when she would stop breathing. And he said it scared everybody all the time, especially Dee, because you have a higher chance of a baby passing away from SIDS, and that her anxiety was high. And that alarm would go off and it would wake everybody up because she had sleep apnea. She really had sleep apnea. Gypsy Rose Blanchard also has a chromosome, a very rare chromosome disorder. She has a microdeletion of a chromosome. And yes, while she's now admitting it in the Cal Lowry interview that she did, she's saying that she was essentially unscathed. She's saying that she was essentially unscathed, and that is not true. And being born with microcephaly is when your head is anywhere from 10 all the way up to 19% smaller than what it should be. And while that doesn't always cause a mental disability, like a cognitive impairment, it can. And while that may not be the case for Gypsy, she also had failure to thrive. It's in her medical records. Gypsy Rose was sick. She had real medical issues. But the whole thing with the wheelchair later on, that's nothing more than a con. And people are saying, oh, they were grifting together off of this and then that. The biggest grift they ever did together was this. Gypsy Rose Blanchard and her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, were pretending that she was a paraplegic in her medical records and lying to doctors because they were getting a monthly disability check. That is the biggest motive that anybody can have. Above and first and foremost before any other GoFundMe or Make-A-Wish or any other charity help that they have gotten. Even getting a house for free from Habitat for Humanity is that monthly disability check. And from my understanding, Dee Dee was getting them for herself as well as a diabetic. That could potentially be over $2,000 a month. That right there is why she pretended to be a paraplegic in a wheelchair. And she knows it. But the crazy thing is that people that really are physically disabled and need to have monthly disability check can't get them and are denied. And SSI and SSDI, Social Security income and Social Security disability income, are reserved for people that have little to no resources that need that financial help. That's what's absolutely absurd, is there are people out there that truly are physically disabled and need it and are denied for years and years and years. People that cannot work. Gypsy Rose Blanchard was not very far away, a month and a half away from her 24th birthday. For argument's sake, for over 6 years, she was an adult. She pretended to still be a paraplegic in a wheelchair. That is not mommy dearest forcing that. That is active participation. And I think it came down to the fact that she was very well aware, in my own opinion, for entertainment purposes only, allegedly, in my own opinion, that had she gotten in trouble, you're not talking just Medicaid or Medicare type fraud, like lying to the state for Medicaid or for food stamps or any of those other programs, which they really clearly did need because neither one of them worked. So I'm sure that they really did qualify for that. But it's a totally different situation when you are getting Social Security. That's clear-cut federal fraud. And that is a very big motive. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So, while it's easy to say that some people just believe the lie, it's not a lie. It's not a lie. Her mom's not here and her mom cannot be diagnosed with Munchausen by proxy. And she never will be able to be.